when they came out, and they said in there, after the World Trade Center, America will launch a series of wars to bring peoples under the control all over the world, under the economic and military control, under the guise of fighting terrorism and globalization. Now, that became prominent, and don't forget the Enoch prophecies were in German before the English translation. So even though the English, they come out in 2002, the things that we've seen occur in the last 5 years, some of those were being foretold in Enoch, and now we see them. And now we're at this brink where they are saying to us, unless the U.S. withdraws from Iraq, go read the Enoch prophecies, it's all there. This is what happens to your country. This is how it happens, and this is who does it. And this is why. So, you know, I mean, to be really honest, we're having a sumptuous experience here due to your generosity and grace. And we're talking about, to me, the most important thing also on this palette of thought and of purpose in life. I mean, what is the purpose of life? What are we here for? We have an opportunity to question and to think and to poke a bit into reality, and there's help. We have been given a ton of valuable help. Specific things for our here and now world, for us as individuals, a kind of a blueprint. This is why this material must get into the world, for those that want to start making that matrix, connecting it. You're familiar with this thing called The Secret that's out? That's nice, it's very, it's positive, how to manifest stuff. And yes, you can use it in lofty ways, but it's appealing to, well, let's manifest more stuff. We're trying to bring out information that says, this is about the essential truth of who you are. We can only give you these parables and these directions and pointers, and you'll have to find it. But it's far more worth finding than anything you can chase after.
But because of people like you and you, Wendelle, and people like Dave and I that have now shared this with you for 20 years and have synthesized it in our brains, you know, it is understandable. You can put your arms around it. You can somewhat simplify. Here's what it's about. It doesn't have to take 25 parts. You could take 25 parts and really dig in, but you could tell the story. And look, here's what they're trying to say. Here's the evidence. It's clear. You know, photographs, metal. You know, sound. 6,000 pages. Stuff about our solar system. I mean, there's all kinds of just bang, 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 bang facts that you could lay out and say, there's no way that this could have been faked, okay? And then after you just lay that out in a brief scenario, then say, now, if you take a look and say, hey, this is credible, now take a look at the rest of what they are saying, and then make this piece short and make this piece long. This is the piece that this is about. This is just to show you we're not full of shit. This is to show, this is what it's about, and there is so much meat, there's so much here for us on this planet to do good if we want to, if we can wake up. And I agree. I mean, if you could get the world to understand that, you know, I mean, and we all know there's so much hate here. There's so much, you know, it's all about money and power and advantage and all of the other things. And if you could get people to realize it is about, hey, it's about putting out good and not trying to, you know, do just for yourself, that maybe things will start changing. They're not going to change overnight. We're not going to revolutionize anything overnight. But
no, it's a silent revolution of truth.
Well, it is. But you know what? We can shout the silence.
Absolutely.
And you know, and that
we've got a song that goes with it. It's a pretty big rock and roll song too. So you know, silent revolution of truth. You know, it kicks out. You're on it. What can you say? We've got to. I don't know. Meier had said they want me to do a workshop at the end of every one of my presentations. I did a little mini one in Laughlin. You guys were there, right? Just a little taste of it about the standing in spirit thing. Because that was something that I had created myself about 16, 17 years ago, just kind of evolved, and I was doing it with people and groups and stuff like that. And then when I started to read more of the Meier material and seeing what they were talking about, I was saying, well, this is a mechanism this is what this is about. This is about this discovery. And from that, I sent a CD to Switzerland. They said, do this at the end of every lecture, because we don't want people to just focus on this phenomenon and say, oh, the sky is falling, because what are you going to do about this once you've got a glimmer? What are you going to do? You're going to want to work on your own awareness, and peace is not a boring thing. You know, people have this crazy idea that because of the way things get characterized, peace, peaceniks, pacifists, leftists, whatever, instead of the prosperity and excitement when you're not constantly threatened and threatening.
Yeah.
How much more fun is that? In my world.
Well, mine too. I mean, it's, shooting for the negative things, just like you said, it brings back negativity to you. And,
Exactly.
I've learned enough, when you run across somebody and they smell like a snake, well, they usually are. And, so don't be one yourself. But this government, and then there's a lot in this about the Bush government and what we're doing, and I certainly look at that and realize, man, it sure does fit with what the Play Orange are telling. In fact, for that matter, when I now go and listen to Discovery Channel and History Channel, and they talk about Peter and a lot of these, the stories of the Bible, I'm going, God, that fits with the Billy Meier case. If you put it in a certain context, it all fits. Like, there's some there. You could weave this. I mean, you can spin anything, but you could also do this. I'd look at it from logic, and legally sufficient evidence, and how many pieces fit to where you just go, this can't be fake, and you could, like I said, you could just build a matrix, and just lay out all of these things, and then look, here's the story, folks. We got to straighten up the planet. We got to do it with every country. We've got to do it with every person, and you could hit people between the eyes with this.
That's the
Well,
idea.
they're sure hitting the Bush administration between the eyes.
Well, but they're not listening. Because there's nobody out there.
They know about it.
They know about it, but they're burying it.
guarantee
But if it were in the public, and it's got being picked up by the media and the pundits and so forth.
Okay, well,
There you go. See if you can get.
I'll alert the media.
Yeah.
Hey, see if you can file a Freedom of Information Act on the U.S. authorized CIA translation of the contact notes.
That'd be fabulous. Well, you want to know?
They've got to have
They
it.
must have something, but I'll tell you this. On my website, I'm able to track to a certain degree where I get my hits and visits from and all of that. And I've had 4,104,000 individual visitors from 117 countries. Okay, I usually get 14 U.S. federal agency websites that are, or servers, whatever, that are tracked, and 4 military. When I did the George Norrie show 4 weeks ago or whatever, I had 363 from the U.S. federal and like 290 from the U.S. military computers that they identify. So I'm saying, great. Maybe in the intelligence community, there's some intelligent people that'll actually read this stuff and say, wait a second, just logistically, statistically, factually, if this checks out, we have to be stupid to not pay attention to this. So there'll be some people that say, well, how can we cheat this? How can we make our agenda work anyhow? It can't. The only thing that's going to work is when we align ourselves with the way things work. And we either do it willingly or we're going to have to go kicking and screaming collectively, which won't be pretty.
Fellas, I'm not going to last here much longer.
Yeah.
I've got much to digest in my head and about 25 pounds of food in my stomach. So I've been up since like 5 this morning. So
Oh, wow.
you're welcome to carry on without me.
I think I'm about ready to.
Unless you want
right up.
No.
this plate
There's
here pretty
dessert
soon.
coming though.
Oh, no.
I tell you what, I'll write you and report to you on what it was.
There you
I
go.
will actually close a space so that I can see it when they bring it up close.
Put it on your website.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks. It was really great. Appreciate the invitation.
You're welcome, George.
George, just because I'm a videographer, is there a synopsis you can report about this whole meeting?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. We'll have to kick that around tomorrow. You should probably grab some of this food, Tony.
Absolutely.
Help yourself, guys. Really.
Pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure, George. Thank you.
Great to see you, Wendell. I'll be in touch, guys.
I hope so.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Did you bring your card, George?
Whew.
Did you bring your business card? Yeah. Okay, let's trade up.
Eating professionally is not easy.
Yeah, we'll get back to this.
Get back to it.
Uh-huh.
You're gonna
Well,
carry
let's all
on.
take a break here.
A
And,
significant amount of data
That's right.
on the case.
Take a little
I'd be willing to
exercise.
lend it to you. I'm really judicious about that too. It's a lot of rare stuff.
I'm going to go back and dig up some of the stuff I've done before and see if I can make
Nibble, as you can tell.
we'll get together again for.
This was fabulous.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so good and so
Hey, well,
fun. You guys, this is,
He did this.
well,
I do thank you for coming.
yeah, I've never sat at anything like this.
I don't think I have
I
either.
will.
No.
I still need to get a hold of you, get my wife's book back.
And
It's pretty nice.
Well, tell you what, I showed up the day after you took
Wow,
it back into your office.
I was just worried it was going to disappear.
Well, I appreciate that. It was just that my wife thought my wife was, and I was gonna, but I'll walk you out here just briefly.
Okay, good to see you. See you later. Thank you, guys.
bye, George.
I'll be back in a minute.
Gents, after
Oh,
dessert,
hey, look, I
say we
understand. Look,
wrap
you're a
it up,
hard-working
huh?
man. and
Well,
you're
if you
right.
insist.
Look, I start folding pretty
Yes,
early.
ma'am,
This-
thank you.
This one's just, I've been planning for this. So,
Bizarre.
yeah, I mean, it's, you
Well,
know,
Dave,
want some
they
food? Help
love the
yourself, huh?
opportunity to not just talk
This to
about
me,
it, but
I
to
mean,
come meet you and talk about it.
This
That
is
was,
the big question. I mean,
One of these days we'll have a presentation.
we have the opportunity through you and your brother's good
Oh, I'd
graces
love it.
to be here with George and you and this crew and to talk about
Yeah, I mean, just
what I
even
think
if-
is the
even
most
not-
important
even
story
if
in
just for
human
fun,
history.
man.
That may be a bit, since, you know, human history goes thousands and thousands of years back, and maybe other civilizations, why don't we just say in 3,000 years?
Well, you can put it any way you want. If it's true,
It's the
it
most
covers-
important story today.
Absolutely. I would
Okay.
agree with that.
All right, I'll go there. Yes, and we can try to tell a story more. That was my goal. Look, he talks about a birthday. My idea is that the proliferation of this case, and particularly the religious part of the case, will have an impact into planting the seeds to change the world. My idea is if the world could unlearn its devotion to faith, which is nothing more than adherence, blind adherence to an unverifiable belief system.
Yep, absolutely.
Exactly what it is. If we can help the world unlearn faith,
Escape from dogma.
all right? And I believe that is going to take, if we do it right, 3 or 4 generations. All right? Because now we have the internet, we have this case, all right? Unfortunately, without those scrolls, Michael, I'm telling you, those scrolls were critical because the religious scholars will not pay attention to the Talmud without those scrolls. But nevertheless, we'll take what we have. And in the body of the case, there is enough legally provable evidence, if you would, all right? Legally valid evidence.
Legally sufficient, I think is the term, right?
All right?
I'm not a lawyer, but
that we have that in the body of the case, we should pay attention to that part of it. And that, to me, think about what would help even the Muslims change their perspective. If they could have the seeds of helping them unlearn religion and become objective and understand that their faith is nothing more than an unverifiable belief system. Why do they cling to that? I mean, think about this. In every area of our lives, business, science, sports, whatever, you make a proclamation to somebody, they're going to basically say, prove it. When it comes to religion, it is the one area where very logical, smart people suspend their normal process of convicting themselves of, yeah, he's right, and they accept nonsense, okay? And then they base their lives on it as if it were fact.
But you're leaving out one ingredient, that, in my opinion, because everything you've said is right. I agree with anything, whether it's right or not. I agree. The problem is that the conditioning and the taboo against questioning faith is strong. That's why I reduce it to that thing. Here's the fatal flaw of faith and belief. What's in this book is true because this book says it's true. That is the sum totality of every religion. And here's a further step. Who is the real authority in a religion? Do you know who the authority is? Only the person that decides that this is the truth. Because you can put every holy book on the table and say, we want 1,000 people come in, read these books, and you decide which is the true truth, the true God, the true religion. You'll have somebody lined up at each table.
Sure.
Right? So what does it tell you? It means that the very thing that they're trying to tell us, we're already doing, but we've got to twist it. We are responsible. We're the authority. So when we say, well, this is the true religion, we've made that choice. Now you challenge somebody, you say, demonstrate to me how that's true, but that isn't how once the mind is religiously conditioned, there is your challenge, because it doesn't make the leap into logic. It fights against logic.
I understand how it goes.
Yeah, you guys must know better than I do.
I did that. I understand how you go from that blind adherence.
The ionosphere. Industrial gases are what's doing it. Heavier gases that rise slowly, pick up one ion and descending. It takes 10 years for them to rise to the ionospheric level. She's explaining all of this to Billy, who, she's not a scientist, he has a 6th grade education. And she's explaining that the deterioration is on an ever-increasing scale, and they project for the next 10 years where the gases will continue. If we stopped everything at that moment, the gas would rise for another 10 years. She said the degradation will approach 10%, and she said that's serious. So she asked him to contact his government and ask them to intercede between the two Cold War powers and try to slow down the contamination of the ionosphere. And nobody wanted to listen to him. And after a few weeks, he came back and she said, "What did they say?" And he said, "Nobody will talk to me." She said, "All right, you write up a letter, what I told you." And she'd already, when he got back from that meeting, he sat down to make notes in longhand, and his hand took off writing rapidly, straight away from like that, in his hand, but very rapidly, faster than he could normally write. And everything came out word for word in the dialogue, which amazed Billy at that time. He thought, gee whiz, they have a fantastic memory. Then she explained to him that the meeting was recorded by a machine, a device, that they tuned to Billy's brain and it transmitted it back. So it was all done by a machine automatically, and they didn't miss a word. So she comes back and she said, she asked him to send the communications, which he did, and nobody responded. And she asked him to do it again and send them to all the consulates and embassies in Switzerland. There were 51, I think. And they made up a whole bunch of letters and had them hand delivered, and only one country responded, and that was East Germany. So nobody is asking him what do they want or anything like that. So she says, "What kind of response do you get?" He says, "Absolutely none." He says, "Why don't you do it yourself?" And she said, "We have tried." She said, "We contacted one of the presidents. You know, Switzerland has 5 elected presidents, and they rule as a presidential council, and the chairmanship rotates every 3 months." She said, "We contacted one of the presidents. He was so upset about it, he didn't tell his family, he didn't tell his wife, didn't tell his kids, didn't tell his colleagues, and he's terrified. He's not going to do anything." So she said, "We were hoping that you could get their attention. Somebody has to do this." And he said, and then they sent him to all the consulates and the embassies.
Did he ask why me? At any
Yeah,
point?
she did. He said, "Why me?" And she said, "That's why, because they will analyze the pictures and want to know, since they can't successfully dispute them, they will want to know who they are and what they want." And she said, "Then you tell them. And be sure and tell them about the degradation of the ionosphere."
But
So,
I mean, why he was chosen, 6th grade education, one-armed guy.
He was chosen because she explained to him at the time, which he didn't really accept either. She said, "You have been a prophet in the past. You have historical references in your Old Testament of your biblical works. You experienced incarnations as prophets over time." And she said, "You are the modern day prophet. And we want you to be sure and get this information out because it's a serious matter." And then she explained that you think that your earth is your earth, but it's our earth too. We have been here as long as you have, and we have colonized this planet several times over after cataclysmic destructions where the humanity loses all of its technology and all of its communications. Everything breaks down. They're reduced to savage hand-to-mouth living. The Plejarians have come back with a delegation again and recolonized the planet. And the last time, she said, this was done was 60,000 years ago under a Plejarian leader called Aarhus, Aarhus. And she said that he came with 200 sub-gods, and they set up little fiefdoms all over the world and tried to raise primitive Earth humanity a notch back towards civilization again. And she explained that he was one of those sub-gods, and they had strict rules about mixing with Earth women, but he took women into his household and bound himself in Earth evolution as a result of it. So the other prophets all came down from that time. All the old biblical prophets are within that 60,000 year period. There's other lifetimes before that where he had enjoyed similar relations, but he's a spirit akin to theirs, of their spirit nature.
I have a question for you. When did Lee finally start going over there with you, Lee Elders?
About the third time I went over there, Lee and Tom were sweeping a bank system in London. They were doing debugging of computers and telephone systems, and they were doing a bank in London. And that third time, I got persuaded Billy to take me around to all of the photo sites so we could see what was there, and he agreed to do that. And after the 2 or 3 sites, immediately I knew that there's no way he could fake those. There's no way to suspend a line because the hill slopes down at a steep angle and it's 10 miles across the valleys to the other side. There was usually no trees in the immediate vicinity to string any wires to, and he only had one arm to climb the tree and string the wires. And I called Lee and Tom over in England, and I said, you got to come over and see what I'm seeing. And they bought an airline ticket and came over. And the next day, we went around to all the sites, and we took Billy, or he took us, but he took the same camera he used to take the pictures, and he reenacted each photo event step by step, and where he took each of the pictures and how he moved and where he aimed the camera and things like that, so we could fit the pictures back into a pattern. And that was very useful because it was further confirmation that there's no way that he could have faked the pictures. They actually had to be posed. And that's where they became convinced that this case is really happening, because there's no way he could have got those pictures with a broken camera and without assistance or help of any kind in that way.
This was done before computers were around that you could fake the stuff with.
Yeah, but we didn't have that kind of computers
Right.
then.
Did on that first trip with Lee, did the CIA stop you guys on that trip?
Yeah, no, it wasn't that trip. They were already there. But after we came back, and I had got more pictures. By now I had 135 of them. And we looked at the pictures, and we're still trying to figure out. We got a lot of questions unanswered, and we decided we're going to have to go back again. And we made that decision in a telephone call between me and Lee living in Phoenix. And we agreed to meet halfway at Picacho Peak. So I drove up from Tucson, he drove down from Phoenix. We met there, and we decided we're going to have to go back again and do some more field work and probably rent laser surveying instruments and measure distances and a whole lot of things so we could further analyze the pictures. And we broke up from that and left, and then Lee had a gap in his business, and I had gotten some more money for something else, and I called him again. He called me and he said, let's meet. We knew where we were going to meet, but we didn't mention at that time, and we met again and set a date that we were going to try to go, and again we're going to go by Laker. So after that meeting, and just less than 2 weeks after that, Lee got a letter from England, and blue parchment, beautiful blue parchment with silver lettering on the return address corner of the envelope. The page inside was matching blue parchment with the letterhead in silver on the top, and it was only a 2-paragraph short letter that said, greetings, I understand you're coming to Europe soon. I believe we have interests in common. Call me at this number, and he gave me a telephone number, before you leave. So Lee brought that to the next meeting, and it was signed Mark Nathan, Secretary General of the Knights Templars of Malta. Well, I didn't know who the Knights Templars were or anything else, but it looked like expensive stationery and a nice signature, Mark Nathan and all that. We looked at it, we decided we don't need any help. Screw him, we're not going to call the number. So 10 days later, we got another letter, said you did not respond to our last communication. Please call me at this number, and the same number again. When you get to London, this time the letter was on white parchment with gold stamping on the envelope and gold letterhead on the paper. And it was signed Mark Nathan, Secretary, whatever it is, of the House of Commons. And it was on House of Commons stationery. So we thought, gee whiz, this guy gets around, whoever he is, but we're not going to call him because we don't need any interference. So we bought our tickets at Laker and waited for it to go, and we left on an unscheduled departure and arrived at Heathrow Airport at an unscheduled time, and we got off the airplane, took our bags and walked to the subway station to catch it down to Victoria Station, downtown London. The train left every 5 minutes, because we could have been on any train. When we got at the Victoria Station, went up the stairs to the starter platform at the railroad station there, and we see the line of black taxis out the door on the side. We know it, we're supposed to take the front taxi, and we're standing there trying to decide whether we'll have a sandwich or something before we get in the taxi or go on the taxi and do it later. When a big black guy, came up, tapped him on the shoulder. "You're Mr. Elders?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I've got your taxi. Come with me." We said, "What about the taxis out there?" He says, "I've got your taxi. Come with me." And he took us around the end of the taxis and around the corner out of sight of the other cabbies in the line there, put us in the same kind of a London taxi, big black limousine taxi, locked us in, and then we drove around town. I started to tell him we were going to stay with a gunnery sergeant down in Kensington. He says, "I know where you're going." And he drove around and got us completely lost. Then he pulled up in front of a hotel on the south side of Hyde Park. It's the Grosvenor House Hotel. He said, "This is an interesting place. Movie stars live here." And he parked the taxi on the only striped spot for a taxi in front of that whole hotel, and got out, took us out, then locked the cab and left it there and took us inside. And he took us up the elevator to the 5th floor and down a corridor on the left of about 4 doors or 5 doors, made a secret knock on the door, tick, 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 tick. The door opened and a round face with round glasses looked out, and they said something, and the door went all the way open. He motioned for us to go in. It was a very small kitchenette arrangement with just a refrigerator and a hot plate and a sink, and the door on the other end. And the same man went and opened that, said something to somebody inside, motioned for us to go in, and it was a big living room with a 4-cushion sofa on one side, facing a huge full-wall picture window like that. And there was a love seat over here on this side, a coffee table in front of that, and a coffee table in front of mine. And he was sitting over in the corner, standing in front of a big, fat, black, overstuffed chair, leather chair, with a table on each side of the arms. And he said, "I'm Mark Nathan." And we said, "Oh, nice to meet you." He said,
Thanks for the
"Well,"
ride.
he said, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Do you mind?" And we all started sitting down, and just as he sat down, the white telephone on one side rang. Ring, 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 ring. And I looked at Lee, and he looked at me. We'd heard that ring in Billy's house. And Lee had already explained to me that no telephone can ring 10 rings because there's only 6 cams on the lobe, or 6 lobes on the cam. So you can only get 6 longs or shorts in any combination, no 10 rings. And that was a signal to Billy when he didn't recognize whether he was thinking something up or whether they was being transmitted. The phone would ring 10 times and he would know it was them transmitting until he got accustomed to recognizing the reception, physically. So anyway, we look at each other, and Mark Nathan is over there by his chair saying, "Hello, hello, hello, hello." And he says, "I wonder who could call this line." And he said, "I'll call the operator." So he called the operator. He says, "Did you ring?" She said, "No." He said, "Could anybody call in this room without going through your switchboard?" She says, "Not in this hotel." He said, "Well, my phone rang. How do you account for that?" She didn't know how. And he's puzzling over that when he puts the phone back down and he starts to talk again. The red phone on the other side rang. 10 short rings. Ring, 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 ring. And Lee and I looked at each other again, and same thing, nobody on the line. And he says, "This is a discreet line. This line is supervised all the time. It's a hotline." He said, "There's an operator on it all the time." And he punched the button and says, "Did you call?" She said, "No." He said, could anybody call this room from anywhere else? She says, of course not. And he put that down and he's shaking his head. And Lee said, you know, did you notice that was a strange ring? He says, it was a strange ring. Lee says, that was 10 shorts. He said, that's the Palladium's signal to Billy Meier that to confirm what he's thinking is a telepathic transmission. And then he got real excited about it. So he asked us if we would look for certain things in the household. Said they tried to penetrate it for 2 years, couldn't get anybody inside because they were all close friends and they weren't able to put.
What a great place to host this event.
It is. It's a fantastic place.
Glass of cold milk.
Unreal. I may eat again on Sunday.
Yeah. I hear
Well, I didn't eat since that sandwich I had with you for lunch yesterday, preparing for this.
Whoa.
Fantastic.
This goes to the Food Channel, I think, right? Never mind the UFO thing.
Yeah, let's do a thing on just the food that was served.
The food.
The next time I bring something this small, it was a seminar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We should just say, we're willing to let the world end, but first, this meal.
Right. Quite really. Okay. It's coming up on 10:30.
Let's get this thing going.
Huh?
These guys are tired.
Yeah, yeah. We're not going to keep you up too much longer. What time are? I don't recall. What time are you guys' flights?
8:30 or something in the morning?
Here's my 8:20. 8:20 for you or 8:30? It's. Can you guys just take a cab? You're 3 miles from the airport.
Sure.
Sure.
It's on the same road too. Just
Thank you.
How much time should we allow for the whole
What
process
day-
here?
Tomorrow's Friday.
Friday. Friday's a busy day going out, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. But it's a morning, so
Yeah. You know what? You're right.
probably an hour.
Yeah.
An hour would be fine.
You sure?
Yeah. You'll be in the airport.
So if you're in the cab at
7?
70 minutes before your flight, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're not checking. You want to check, so you might want to give yourself a few extra minutes. But
Yeah, if
can
you're
they check at the
checking-
curb? Can they check at the curb?
As long as it's dropped, yes.
Okay. Don't feel like you have to eat it all. We just thought I'd make it a selection.
Man. Unreal.
Yeah, I'd like to see more postings from the GIA people or whoever, just
Do what?
more postings of the contacts.
Do you go onto their website?
I go onto yours every day.
You should always link over to them and see what
Is there
they
a
got.
link on yours?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think I have linked over to them. They do seem to have other troubles. Is the government after them over there?
They're fighting what they say are child molesters in the Australian government. Pedophiles. I mean, they've picked themselves some big battles over there. Some
I'm
big
surprised that some representatives of the Bush administration haven't been knocking on your door.
Why? There's nothing that I can tell them that they can't find out directly.
Yeah, they've got it. They've been
Yeah,
copying
well, you're
Wendell's notes.
the authorized U.S. spokesman. So.
Yeah, but I'm not a revolutionary. I'm not out there telling people to burn down the White House or anything, I'm just a reporter.
Bush follows the script to destruction. Michael.
Well, he is.
He is. Absolutely he is.
I mean, we got to tell it like it are.
No, the
Right.
thing back in '58 or whatever it was that said, there'll be two wars
Right.
in Iraq, and the one Bush, the son of Bush, will lead it to destruction. Was that a letter? Was that a prophecy? Was that in the
Letter.
notes? What is that?
The letter, 160 separate predictions sent to 25 European nations. It included the, that one's right on my website too. It included the Russian moon landings, the fake US landing, and then the fact that we would have other ones that were real.
I think George, what he keyed in on for evidence was if you could get a copy of all those letters that Billy has sent around the world, because those contain, you know, those are
Before the fact.
those are before the fact, and those are documents that can be proven were disseminated.
Well, that is true, and yet, as I say, it exists in some of these other things. They're in copyrighted books, unalterable documents, DVDs. A word to the wise should be sufficient.
Well, George has definitely got his juices flowing, I think.
I mean, he may also wonder just what he could do. You know, it's like,
George is. I mean, right now, I mean, he's tired, but I could tell by chat with him. You know, I mean, he even mentioned he's thinking about what he could do with this. So, and then he's also going to go into his archives, make copies of all kinds of good stuff for us to maybe get down, get together with him and view.
okay.
And guys, I want to come back for another party. Not like this.
Right.
But we can do this room again.
Okay. It's a great room.
Thank you.
But you actually should never do this again. It's too, you know, no, this is a once in a lifetime thing.
It is. It is. Well, that's exactly right. Look, sitting down with the three of you and my brother to enjoy not only your company and your stories and good food, but you know what this potentially means for, you know, our future. This is a once in a lifetime event. I want it, you know, whether we do a story on it or not. This is a once in a lifetime event. Dave and I have been sharing Billy Meier stories. Dave, what's new in the Billy Meier case? You know, because he's more, you know, he's more read on it.
Are both
than
you guys attorneys?
No, I'm a telephone guy. Dave's a financial planner.
Oh.
Just
Profit.
What?
Profit.
For profit.
right, yeah. Well, exactly. Got to make some money somewhere.
Absolutely.
They're
It's the
ready.
world we're in.
The crew's ready to wrap
Yeah.
it up there, okay?
Why don't we allow this crew to go home and we can finish up and we'll get you guys back home soon so you
Okay.
can get a good night's sleep. So,
That's excellent.
Tony, we'll let's get you guys wrapped up so you can go home.
Rocket, give me a wrap.
Huh?
Give me a wrap.
Give you a wrap. Well, this has been a wonderful. Happy birthday, brother.
Thank you. It was fabulous.
Yes.
Likewise.
Mr.
Wendell.
Stevens, Mr. Horn.
Thank you for coming, man.
Thank
It
you,
was a
sir.
pleasure to
What a-
meet you and become your friend.
What a feast.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
We got
What a party.
What a
party.
yeah.
Okay. Wendell.
Wow, Michael.
Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you.
So,
All right.
all right. Well, we'll
Well
be back
done.
in touch.
Let's wrap it up, guys.
We're just kidding about that spaceship thing.